Chair recognizes Senator 23rd present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, I rise to bring you House Bill H-59. House Bill H-59 adds a new exception to the 18 exceptions that are already allowed for concealed carry of firearms in certain areas on the campuses of our public colleges and post-secondary technical schools. The new exception extends the right to licensed carriers who by definition generally must be 21 years or older and must pass an extensive background check. The right does not extend to on-campus student housing or sports venues. Campus carry restrictions have been around since 1993. Within the past decade, though, there's been a movement to protect our Second Amendment right to bear arms by allowing concealed carry by license holders in more public spaces. The most recent development came 3 years ago with Senate Bill 60. Predictions of an increase in violence following the passage of this bill did not come to pass. So we're here to consider another exemption, another expansion. While I don't expect to change many minds, I do want the members of this chamber to better understand the facts that support 859. A recent study has shown since Georgia began expanding carry rights, the violent crime rate in Georgia has fallen by 25%. During the same time frame, however, violent crime on supposedly gun-free campuses has increased 85%. This is borne out by a rash of forcible robberies at nearby Georgia State and Georgia Tech campuses recently. Guns are already on campus. Hundreds have been confiscated on Georgia campuses. The problem is not whether guns can come on campus, but who can carry them. This bill will not put guns into the hands of most students. Only those who are more mature and are already authorized to carry in most other public spaces will be permitted to have them. Licensed firearm carriers, 1 in 10 adults, are the most law-abiding segment of our population. What will happen with the passage of this bill? If 10 years of experience with campus carry in Colorado is an indication, violent crime will fall. This was borne out by a survey that the Census Bureau conducted of adults who had been victims of crime. Of the 26 who admitted they had been the victims of an attempted rape and had guns, the testimony was the rapes did not occur. The guns that were held by these potential victims made the difference between becoming a victim or protecting themselves. And interestingly, in all 26 cases of attempted rape, none of the perpetrators were injured either. So this is a measure that should save student lives. There's a handout that should be passed around shortly that documents the study that I alluded to earlier by the Georgia Tech alum. I want to close by telling you why I think campus carry is a good thing. Consider Amanda Collins. Rape survivor Amanda Collins testified before the Senate State Affairs Committee about how a ban on campus carry had affected her life. As a 21-year-old, Ms. Collins had a Nevada defensive handgun license. but the University of Nevada at Reno did not allow licensed firearms on campus. She was raped in the parking garage of the campus police station, which was closed for the night. The crime took place just a few feet from an emergency call box. She asked the Colorado senators, "How does rendering me defenseless protect you against a violent crime?" She was confronted by one state senator who said that statistics showed that the gun would have been taken away from her. Actually, statistics show that fewer than 1% of defensive gun use results in the defender's gun being taken. Amanda answered the Colorado senator, "Respectfully, Senator, you were not there. Had I been carrying concealed, he would not have known I had my weapon, and I was there. I know without a doubt in my mind at some point I would have been able to stop my attack by using my firearm. He already had a weapon of his own. He didn't need mine." Because the rapist was not stopped, he later raped 2 more women and murdered 1. The rape occurred within feet of an emergency device, as are sometimes touted as ways to alert the police and bring them onto your protection. Wouldn't have helped her in this case. So, senators, I urge you to cool down or discount the rhetoric that's been passed around on this bill and look at the hard facts. The facts in Georgia are, since we've expanded carry rights, crime has gone down everywhere but college campuses, where it has continued to increase. I respectfully urge you to vote for HB 859, and with that, I'll yield to any questions.
Chair recognizes Senator from 36 for a question.
Thank you. Does Senator yield?
Yes.
Senator, you've no doubt been in the hearings that went very late on some days on this bill. Let me ask you, to your knowledge, has any college president or anyone on the Board of Regents or the chancellor, those people that are charged with running our schools, keeping them fiscally sound, growing, training the next generation of Georgians, have any of these educational leaders who are responsible for student safety asked us to pass a campus carry bill?
They haven't asked me, but I have discussed it with campus presidents, including one in one of the counties that I represent. And what I believe has happened over the last 3 years, since the dire predictions that were made with regard to SB 60 did not come to pass, that people are looking at it in a different light. 3 years ago, I had a petition on my desk from every campus security officer of every Board of Regents institution asking that we not pass it. This year, I have not received any.
So if I heard you correctly, you said you had every security...
3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
None for this bill.
But 3 years ago, every campus in the system, the security leadership asked you not to pass campus carry.
They did. And this year they have been silent. And my belief in conferring with campus officials is that the experience under SB 60 has caused them to rethink whether or not this is as bad as it's been purported to be. The idea that concealed carry, we're not opening it up to all students, only to those that are 21 and older. We're not going to open it up to student housing where your younger students on campus reside. This is something that if you're going from your car late at night to your class, that you ought to be able to carry with you to protect you from someone in the bushes. And I know that we have beautiful campuses all over Georgia, but the opportunity, there's so many, the landscaping permits so many opportunities for surprise. It's something that is inducive to criminal activity. We need some way to protect students and to allow law-abiding members of the public to carry licensed firearms.
But if you'll further yield.
Certainly.
You stated that we heard 3 years ago from the head of security on every campus
Yes.
in our university system asking that we not go forward with campus carry.
That's correct.
We heard testimony from the chancellor, Hank Huckabee, a former member of the House, a longtime Georgia leader, who spoke for the entire system and said on the record that every security personnel leader on his campuses are against this bill. That was testimony submitted this year in person by our chancellor. Is that not right?
I remember he, as a spokesperson for the Board of Regents, spoke against the bill. That's all I remember.
And isn't it true that he stated, for the record, that all 29 institutions under his watch have the opposition of the security leadership on those campuses, on those 29 campuses?
I cannot comment on that. If he did,
Is
he
it
did.
not further true that law enforcement officials across the state have pointed out the negative downside of having a rampant campus presence of guns, and still, I might add, without the ability for them to approach and ask someone on their face to present their concealed carry permit? That's still in the law of Georgia, is it not, that policemen's hands are tied behind them when it comes to having that as a primary inquiry to someone toting a gun?
There has to be a reason for a policeman to stop somebody and ask for either on a traffic stop, their driver's license, or walking at night for their permit. I believe you're correct on that.
It's curious to me, and maybe you can shed some light on it, is why we would, as a legislative body, ignore the leadership of our campuses, both the security leadership, the academic leadership, and the head of the board of the head of our university system. What conceivable reason defends ignoring all of their requests to please let them police their campuses and keep their students safe and keep these guns off of campus? Why would we ignore our educational leadership and try to drive this bill through and make it law?
Because we can't ignore the facts. And some of the misstatements are that this will cause campuses to become awash with guns. Only 1 in 10, or less than 1 in 10 of adults have licenses to carry concealed weapons. And the campuses, the younger segment of it, they're not qualified to carry. So just of the ones who are 21 and older, the older classmen, so to speak, those are the ones that are permitted. Faculty would be permitted. Of course, security already are. You know, there are 18 exceptions to the campus carry restrictions in Georgia now. This would be the 19th.
My final question is, could you review for us, you talked about only mature people having these carry permits and being over 21, et cetera, and isn't it true, and I'd like to ask you to review, what are the requirements for obtaining a concealed carry permit? Isn't it true that it's a background check, and it's paying a minor fee and not much else. There's no training required. Isn't that true, to handle a weapon?
In Georgia,
order
there's no
to get a
training
concealed carry. I'm gonna just ask you to tell us about the concealed permit. What are the requirements?
I think you've stated them accurately.
So they're actually very low bar, isn't it, to go and get a concealed carry permit? There's no
Well-
training at all that's
Well-
required for any sort of ability and knowledge to handle a weapon the way that our law enforcement people are trained, for example.
No training required at this time, but there are ample resources for people who are encouraged to train. And most folks that go out for their security and buy a firearm and get a concealed permit license will go to a shooting range, will go to a place where they can receive instruction. That's not the problem in Georgia, because that's borne out by the fact that the licensed carriers have some of the lowest rate of committing crimes of any segment of our population, almost beyond too low to measure.
Well, Senators, I take my seat. You talked about what segment of the population. Are you familiar with the figures that show almost 80% of the Georgia population opposes campus carry? Are you familiar with that? We're up here proceeding to go against the will, is it not true, of almost 80% of Georgians, 4 out of 5 Georgians?
I question that because a lot of it boils down to how the question is posed.
Thank you for yielding.
Chair recognizes Senator 41st for a question.
Will the senator yield?
Yes.
Senator, you mentioned, I believe, that women with guns thought there was a decrease in crime. They had guns at the time of the attempted rape. There was a decrease with crime or successful rapes. Is that correct?
I was quoting from a Census Bureau study.
Senator, further yield for about 4 questions. Isn't it true that since Colorado has been forced to allow campus carry, the rate of rape has increased 25% in 2012 and 36% in 2013?
I'm not familiar with that statistic.
Thank you. Isn't it further true that in Utah, where carry campus has been permitted since 2004, the rape statistics have fluctuated greatly over the past 10 years, with the last 4 years going from 6.6, 10.7, 9.3, and then 14 in 2013 per 100,000. The difference between 2013 and 2012 accounted for almost a 50% increase. So is it not true that having campus carry certainly doesn't decrease the incidence of violence against women or rape, but may have some effect where it's been increased greatly in campuses that do have carry?
Well, and this may or may not impact on that. We heard testimony that most rapes are committed by persons known to the victim, and quite a lot of them occur in student housing, and we're not trying to extend, and I don't know what the law is in Colorado, but I would not be surprised if it has a similar limitation.
Senator, further yield.
Yes.
Isn't it true that about 45 of the states have some type of training in order to have a carry permit, and Georgia does not have any training for a
If
carry
you say so, I have no reason to question.
Senator, is it not true that when you compare statistics with other states, you're often comparing statistics with states that may have, some have very comprehensive training, some have very little, but that most of the states would have some training before they have a carry permit, where in Georgia, we are one of the most lax that have no training at all for carry permit. So there might be some differentiation in facts and figures from various states because of that.
Well, that's certainly something that would warrant further study.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 34th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would Senator yield?
Certainly.
Senator, the young lady that you spoke of that was on campus and had gotten raped,
Amanda Collins.
how old was she at the time of the assault?
I don't know. The article did not give her age, but just a second. She may have been 21. She was 21 at the time of the rape.
Thank you, Mr. That was it.
Chair recognizes Senator from 42nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
Yes.
Thank you. Senator, isn't it true that we have a good number of daycares on both our technical campuses and our university campuses?
I would not be surprised. There are daycares everywhere.
And does this legislation exclude the carrying of weapons into child care facilities?
It does not have an express exclusion for that.
Do you think it's wise, Senator, to allow guns in daycares?
I think it's wise to allow licensed gun users to carry concealed weapons responsibly wherever they go.
If you'll yield for two more, are you familiar with the one example, the Ackworth 2-year-old that killed himself just a few months ago?
I'm not aware of that.
2 years old. The fact that there are over 300 children every year that die in weapons accidents.
That doesn't surprise me.
Are you familiar with the mother, the very pro-gun mother in Florida whose 4-year-old just shot her through the back?
I heard that.
Yeah. So I guess you still agree that it's might be a wise idea to have guns in daycares?
I don't think they should be lying around, no.
Thank you.
No further questions, Senator.
Thank you. I urge your favorable consideration of HB 859.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 23rd to close the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, the room looks about like it was when I started. I think our flock has scattered. But I'll be brief. As I said earlier, most of us already knew what our position was on this issue before the debate began. But I would like to make a few comments. I too have taught on college campuses. I've served on a college foundation for over 20 years. I was a triple dog at University of Georgia. I was there for many, many years. This is a good bill. Gun-free zones are of relatively recent vintage in Georgia's law. And time has proven that they don't work. Hundreds of guns are confiscated off of our public campuses. Concealed license holders are the most law-abiding segment of our population. Think about it. They act responsibly because they don't want to lose their right to carry. I firmly believe that there's been too much hype on this issue, on this bill, a lot of what you might call fear-mongering. And I think there's been a lot of misunderstanding. Our college campuses aren't going to suddenly become awash with guns. Only 1 in 10 of our adult population carry guns under a permit, concealed carry permit. And this only affects the oldest college students. But we're not going to see the horror stories that have been touted. This bill would just result in a modest increase in the lawful carrying of firearms. It can make campuses safer. To the senator from the 42nd point about losing the gun, not being able to use it defensively, less than 1% of guns that are used defensively are taken away from the holder. They do work. They do protect people. But simply put, the biggest point that I tried to make earlier was that in the decade or so since gun reform has taken hold in Georgia, where we have seriously respected our Second Amendment rights, crime has gone down all over the state, except on college campuses. It's my sincere hope that HB 859 will reverse that and will make our campuses safer places. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well and urge all of my senator brothers and sisters to vote in favor of the bill.
Shall this bill now pass? The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary will unlock the machine. Senator from the 36th, are you going to vote? On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 37, the nays are 17, and this bill, MC Rex Constitutional Majority, is therefore adopted.